You're lying.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Yeah, that's true. Don't we say that every morning as Dan gulps his
Good morning.
And the color today, let's see if we can magically change that. Kind of strange. And somehow, I think that lighting is just a little bit too off with everything. And we had a picture of over here. I'm not going to get into it. I already canceled this show once. And then had to restart it. So I don't really,
Go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
I don't know what to say.
I'm a dead man if I don't get this out of my head.
I can get it out.
How?
A cranial drill and a pair of forceps.
Yeah, do that. He had gigabytes of data in his head. Data. I had placed I was trying to set up a secondary camera, so I have no idea. It's 5:20 a.m. in the morning, okay?
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And it's it's 28th of April, Wednesday in the calendar year 2021 in the former United States and situated in mid-Atlantic states. And it's looking right now like weather-wise, for those of interest, it's 66 degrees outside the studio. And today we'll get up to about, they're saying 79, 80 degrees, cloudy, and overnight 63. But there's this thing that's coming Friday that now was 39 degrees. Now they pushed it back to 36 degrees. Now 36 degrees in this, like, along this Appalachian chain, so to speak, could be freezing. And yesterday I put out some lettuce plants and took off all my freeze covers. And I do not have enough, I'm fixing my chair. I simply do not have enough things to withstand another frost. I'm also wearing the iconic shirt, which is like a printed t-shirt. It's not like some iron on. As far as this colorization, I did get a little bit of sun yesterday, but not that much. So I have no idea. And that's not helping. Those lips over there are the Maggie lips. And everything you know is wrong. I don't know. It's a slow start. 3:33 is the time of how much time I've wasted. And I shall waste no longer. Today I'm drinking another home cold brew coffee that I made myself with instant coffee and ice cubes. I put a little bit of coconut in it, like organic coconut, and it doesn't seem to have done anything. This thing, on the top of his head, by the way, that's a cow. I was wearing that bandana for a while.
Degrees, and the normal low is 42. The record high for today is 92, which occurred in 1990, and the record low is 25, which occurred in 1934. Sunrise today is at 6:18 a.m. and sunset is at 8:08 p.m. This is the NOAA Weather Radio.
NOAA Weather Radio, which you can get on greatsolarstuff.com. I tried to reduce the brightness of this thing. There's my book Codex, by the way. And I actually have a thing covering it. It's like a flag covering it. And it's just not, it's so bright. It's just like this is so bright. I mean, I want you to be able to see that everything you know is wrong and some of the stuff in the background, but not. We call that eyes without a face. And it's hotter than hell in here right now. I mean, ridiculous. I'm not just trying to show off my ridiculous muscles, being the world's strongest man. The show title today on the card that showed some food was Food for Thought. And I'm going to pull that up. And you'll see some various greens with some onions, and in the upper left hand corner is some chopped garlic, and there's a red bell pepper, and it's all resting on a wrap, if you know what a wrap is. So that's a wrap on that.
Okay.
Now, if you go down below to the show me thing, this way to the beach, never thought I'd live to be 1,000. Actually, that's a line, or it's like I think that was a line from a Moody Blues album. To our children's children, something 70-ish. It was the 70s. Could have been either early 70s, late 60s. And same goes for under the description. I have a quote. I took off my watch and found I had all the time in the world. And I just say 60s, 70s band, The Association. And there's a link to Instagram among all my other links, like my locals link, TonyCaravanLive.locals.com, TonyCaravanLive.com. But you could also find me on Instagram, Tony Caravan whatever. What do they go? _Caravan. Tony _Caravan. Don't you hate when people do that?
Let's get ready to rumble!
So if you're interested, this show is going to be a little bit different. But like I say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. The morning show, grab a mug. There's only a handful of people that do these kinds of things, on the internet. I'm one of them. And this is approaching 80 some consecutive shows, something ridiculous like that. I have no idea why this hat is half cocked. It's like this show. The show is half cocked. Anyway, so I'm going to get into it. I thought yesterday's show ended up pretty good. It lasted, I think it was just under 2 hours, if I'm correct. I forget. I did review it and enjoyed it, as always. I always enjoy my shows, mostly. This, like I say, I had a false start on this one, and then I just stopped it. And I always do this in the beginning because that's just the way it is. So.
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
And so, this coconut that I put in this coffee, you can't see it because you can't see anything on this screen. With this camera. It almost looks like rice. And it tastes like nothing. I really would like to have gotten like a 2-liter bottle of soda, but I didn't. This is one of my older books. My life is a surrealistic nightmare. And it's actually, me at an old-fashioned radio board those round things look like knobs. They used to call them pots. Turn up the pot. And that was like for the volume. A little bit of radio for you. And of course, the iconic Tony Caravan head is popping through this surrealist design I created. My life is a surrealistic nightmare. And I was going to read something from this at some point today. I also found this. This is of no interest. This shouldn't be of no interest to the general public. But I talked about this yesterday or one of those days. Or no, actually, it might have been weeks ago. But you see how it says Caravan store? It's like how my grandfather started with had a store. And then you see how there's all these signs in the window? They're like printed. Well, and by the way, this, I'm trying to hold the book and hold this at the same time. This is my dad here as a boy. And I'll tell you, in his whole life, he looked the same. And these are my uncles. But so this was the store that he created. And of course, the name Caravan, which sounds weird now, like someone would think, wouldn't have, he changed that. He made that name for the business, changed it. It's the basic roots of the original were there, but it's not. So people confuse my nationality sometimes. No, he just thought it would be a good name for the business. A lot of people did that, Italians, Irish, Polish, people from other countries in Western Europe and whatnot, where names were just, either people wouldn't accept your name if it had an I, an O, or a YZK on it or something. So, people they Americanized their names. And so just out of curiosity, people who watch this show, they're interested in, this is, like I said, or like she says.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
But the interesting thing about this was I was talking about how I've been in the printing business, like there's 4 generations of printers in our family. So he was printing these signs. As you can see, they're printed signs, not like handwritten signs. And this is a very old photo. This is probably this is the 30s, I would say. But I mean, he was doing this stuff in the, 1900 something or 19, I don't know, something like that. So well over a century ago. I was just using it as a bookmark for this thing. I'm going to probably not read to you the whole thing, but it's lived to be 250. And as it was, longevity is not as rare as you may think. And so an old photo, an old family story, food for thought on the title card. And I never thought I'd live to be 1,000. We've been talking about consciousness and immortality in previous episodes. And the association, I took off my watch and found I had all the time in the world. It's 5:32 a.m. We've been almost 14 minutes into this program. And it seems like it's time for...
We'll have to remodulate our signal to match the network's interlink frequency.
I think we needed to do that. So with that said, and a drink of Java, and a fear, if you want to keep tabs on the saga, check that Instagram link out. I mean, yesterday I was out in the backyard, and again, I have no idea why the lighting is the way it is. And like, if I do this, it's just like washed out nonsense. I mean, so it's not, this is not intentional. Trust me. It's just weird. It's a camera. And so, but I was out, I transplant it in my outside greenhouse. We'll get to, this is how we usually start the show for newbies. All right. I transplanted some lettuce I had in this mini greenhouse I have out there, which looks like the TARDIS, if you know Doctor Who. And I'm going to paint the door to make it look like the TARDIS this summer. And it was close to, after I did that, I was just relaxing on my lounge chair, listening to some music because I've got outdoor speakers. I got a whole setup out there. And so I'm just laying back in the sun, getting that vitamin D3 because that's, activates all kinds of stuff inside of you. It's good for your immune system. Getting, I'm getting like a sun, not a sunburn, but I mean, I'm getting sun color, as they say. And, it was like a summer day, early summer day. Now today it's going to go up to 80 degrees. And the overnight's only going to be like it was, like I think I said here, it's 66 right now. So if it's 5:35, the sun hasn't come up yet. The overnight temperature was in the 60s. And today's going to be same thing, 80 degrees and 60 and 60 some overnight. And the following day, it's not going to be that much worse. It's going to be, Thursday's going to be 70 degrees in the daytime. Today's going to be 80, but it's going to be 48 overnight. 48 I could deal with. Cooties I can deal with, like they Travolta in that, or what's her name in that movie? Cooties I can deal with. But Friday, the high is going to be 55 and the low is going to be 36 so far. And it's like, what is going on? It's going to be, that 36 is going to be the 1st of May. And I'm so tired of people talking about making it sound like the earth is scaring children and making it sound like the earth is going to turn into a cinder in a couple years if some kind of fees aren't paid to some European bureaucrats. Because that's what it really amounts to, like some kind of carbon tax. We're a carbon planet. We're a carbon-based civilization, for crying out loud. And it's been getting cooler progressively. During one of the solar maximum, you heard it there, like the high, there was a record high in like the 90s, and there was a little part in the 2000s, right around the Al Gore movie, early part of the 2000s, where like the sun during a solar maximum, that has to do with how many sunspots there are in the sun. Now, right now we're heading into a grand solar minimum, not just a solar minimum. And we're expecting the planet to be cooling. I mean, we've been looking at crop shortages, and that's why we're seeing early snows already in the southern hemisphere, which is supposed to be the complete opposite of us. But, so they're seeing early snows and we're still seeing cold. So there was actually almost an equilibrium there for a while. Last week when it snowed 2 inches in my backyard in the mid-Atlantic states, like I say, I'm closer to the Mason-Dixon line than I am to the, north. I'm not the Northeast. Okay. It was almost an equilibrium where it was as cold in many places here in the northern hemisphere as it was in the southern hemisphere. It was like, so things are out of whack, folks. And I don't know why they're fear mongering, and they've got all these kids scared. And then there's all these adults that are just mindless, robots, as I call them. Listen to my song, Robots. I could play a couple seconds of it here before we get into everything. We got all the time in the world. I took off my watch and I found I had all the time in the world. Yeah, here's the Robot song. Just a couple seconds.
The souls of millions who wander aimlessly around the streets. Dressed as they should, believing what they've been told. doing what they think is right, acting like the others, obedient robots.
Obedient robots. You know, that's what we're dealing with right now. And that's like this the mannequin head I've got set up here, eyes without a face, right? You go outside, it's just eyes without a face. So obedient robots. Crazy, man. It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Well, anyway, I'm hoping that this isn't going to be, you know, a wash in my garden. And the reason I say that is because, you know, and this follows with everything we're talking about, you know, because I'm not into the politics anymore. You know, let these people deal with that. If you want to live in that world of fear and believing that things are going to change because of some individual, like I got into it yesterday. I'm not going to get into any long rant on that. But the idea is it's one party, then the next party, one party, then the next party. The people change, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. You know, there are subtle differences, but we've been going on a downward spiral, and that's why I call this the former United States. We have irreconcilable difference. The divorce judge has said, divorce granted, irreconcilable differences. You know, it's clear. So we'll get into, like, you know, everything seems to kind of get crazy as these things progress. And it all makes sense and things come together. And that's why I like watching these things back, because it's like a mind. It's interesting to see how the discussion, and why I enjoy doing this. I'm not monetized. I don't make any money. You could buy these things from Great Solar Stuff if you want, but nobody has, and I don't care. All right. I mean, it would help you. That light, that bright light back there in the back that's annoying, is being fed by this lithium powered thing that you could charge from a solar panel, your house or your car. And you can see the little plug where my thumb is like pushing. And there's also USB ports there to charge your cell phone, run your laptop, do whatever. I mean, in a power down situation, I'm talking about somebody hits a pole and the power goes out, or the ice is on these telephone wires and you got no power for, 8 hours or sometimes a couple days in the wintertime. Or forget if you're in Tornado Alley or a hurricane land. Well, you just have a device like this, and they have various degrees of these. This is like the low budget one, $199. That's all I paid for that, $99, right? It holds its charge. All right. This light will be on. This has been on for the past week. I put this on for the whole duration of the show, 2 hours, and then I just plug it in again the next day. This thing's not dying. So you could sit there, use your cell phone as a hotspot, have your laptop plugged in. You could be, if you've got kids or something, you could be watching some kind of movie, because, the satellite system is most likely is not going to be down, if somebody hits a telephone pole. And chances are your internet cellular service won't be down either, unless you're in like some hurricane or tornado that, scours the land. But generally speaking, a device like this can be a lifesaver, and it definitely make your life. Not to mention, this light is drawing something like 6 volts or something like 6 watt. It's like a 6 watt. It's LED, but it's blinding. So anyway, enough of that. That's greatsolarstuff.com. It's just something I do because I'm sharing it with you, and I'm unlike these people that test these. We're going to have an unboxing, right? And they say this one's better than this one, and we've tested this, and I'm like, you're telling me you tested it again with the secondhand knowledge, third-hand knowledge. No, I'm showing you live. There's the light. There's the box. Okay. This little NOAA radio thing that I have here is also solar powered, solar chargeable, and you can emergency charge your cell phone from it. It's got an AM/FM radio on it and light as well. $35. Okay, enough of that. I'm just so tired. Everything you get from me is the truth firsthand. And when I don't know, you'll see me click and then like kind of look up here because I'll go to a source, an actual documented source to find out something. Like for example, this will brighten up the screen. If I go to new window and I click here, and just for the sake of it, Bitcoin value today, not that I have, is $54,000. Okay. That's the Bitcoin value. I'll go to the source and tell you that. I won't, like I said, that's just it's an odd example, but that's an example. So, yeah. It's a classic picture, though. My father's no longer with us. He was a very, very interesting guy. Worked hard his whole life. Took care of his family. See, suddenly look at the light, No weird? So something with the camera. And I mean, the book is helping maybe do some reflection, but excuse me. I got the Hello Dolly handkerchief. I was using the other one. This is the classic handkerchief. Did laundry yesterday. Excuse me. Today I plan on walking up the store probably after this show. There's a bar that opens at 7 a.m. It's like a swing shift or third shift bar left over from the old industrial days of this town. The guy who owns it, runs it, tends bar, is like 80 years old. I talked to him one morning. And there's always like people in there, at 7 a.m. At 7 a.m., and he has, takeout, but it's like the crappiest selection of takeout beer. But this afternoon, I think I'm going to have a few beers and smoke a couple of cigars. It's next to like a convenience store that sells crappy. It's like the cigars sometimes are stale as hell, but sometimes you get lucky and you get a half decent one. Anyway, a couple cigars, a couple of brews, listening to some music loud in my bar, which is in my kitchen instead of, being a confirmed bachelor has its good points. Anyway, this book, like I say, this is one of my earlier books. My 10th book is coming out this year. This was copyrighted 2016, so I wrote this 2016, but it contains probably some stuff that goes back as 2015. I used to write a lot of essays. I do this now, and I've been doing this for a while. So this is my creative outlet. So like that song Robots, I was writing 50 some beat poetry songs out there. You can listen to them on Spotify if you want to, or anywhere, Apple Music, whatever. They're on YouTube Music for, you can listen for free. If you buy them, I don't know. I might make 2 cents or a penny or a fraction of a cent. I don't know how that works. But anyway, this is Live to be 250. Longevity is not as rare as you may think. And like, again, the card for this show was food for thought. And I'm showing. And the reason I'm doing this is a friend of mine has got this, like, was Nate, who got the thing in the arm and all that stuff. And, but who's been trying to say, saying she has allergies and her nose has been stuffed and she's been a little bit fatigued. But it's not really, but she's been tested and she doesn't have the thing, the unspeakable. And I've been trying to say that, look, it's all about your immune system, but it's also about inflammation. Now, I'm not a nutritionist nor a doctor, and am I trying to tell you how or what you should eat or do? Okay, let's get that out of the way so that the monitors don't say he's giving misinformation out. I get that stuff all the time. Or block me in some weird country like Cuba or North Korea. Like I care. Like who wants to be there? Right? And they don't even have like internet access in North Korea, for crying out loud. I mean, except for what's his face, if he's still alive, right? Who knows? I think his sister's running the country. You know what I mean? So I'm going to like kind of maybe speed read through some of this stuff, because I don't want to bore you. But I don't remember. I wrote this. What are we talking? This is at least 5 years old. So, this information, I don't have the facts. So there was a man in China who reportedly lived to be 256 years old. Some records have him being born in 1677. The year Milton wrote Paradise Lost. He was 12 years old when Peter the Great became the Tsar of Russia, and over 100 when the Declaration of Independence was written. He was 200 after the American Civil War and would live to see electricity, cars, planes, and even World War. 256 years old. And this is one of the most documented cases. 1677 he was born. Okay. He lived an active life until his death in 1933, working as an herbalist. He lived off a diet of, and these things are lingzi, goji berry, wild ginseng. I took some wild ginseng this morning. Something called he shu wu and gotu cola, which Kola. Sounds like a good brand name for somebody to adopt. Gotu cola. If you want to live to be 250, get some gotu cola. Maybe I ought to like come up with that as the new morning show drink. I have no idea what it was. I tried to look up some of these things. Goji berries you can buy. Obviously ginseng, wild ginseng you can get, and some of these other things. But I think it was either the gotu cola or the he shu wu, which I had no idea what it was. And he drank rice wine. And this is the other thing about a lot of these people that live to be, very old. And I touched on this a little bit yesterday, that not only were they healthy, like this guy worked, the guy was 256 years old, and he worked until he died. I mean, granted, he was an herbalist and probably just was, shuffling around in his little herbalist shop. But I mean, 256 years old, not 156, right? Or not like a lot of people in the U.S. who died, a heart attack at 56. This is insane. There was a Nigerian man who is believed to be 170 years old. That was as of this writing. And an Ethiopian farmer claiming to be 160. A man in Indonesia has official identification showing his birth date to be 1870. Okay. So he would be what? 150. Like 151 years old now, right? I got that right. The world's oldest woman on record lived to be, now we're getting into Western civilization, right? Or the former Western civilization, as I call it. The world's oldest woman on record lived to be 122 and remained mentally intact until the very end. She smoked 2 cigarettes a day, had a rich diet in olive oil, also used it on her skin. I used to know a girl was like into olive oil, like kinky. I wonder if she's watching this. Yeah, that was fun. Drank port wine, another wine drinker, and ate over 2 pounds of chocolate per week. She attributed her longevity to remaining calm. All right. And then I just go on to say there are many others from all parts of the world, all nationalities, living in all climates and elevations. Because some people say, oh, people in high elevations or this island off the coast of Japan, blah, blah, blah. It's not true. Because this is people actually are interested in this. There's some serious studies and in-depth studies, like where they've interviewed They call them centenarians. And like even in the US, they found there was one study that interviewed 400 centenarians, and to try that, these people in search of, longevity. And many of the oldest people do not necessarily eat the healthiest diets or exercise beyond their normal daily activities. Many also drank alcohol, like I said. Ancient writings speak of people living to be 800 or more, though these are dismissed as mere myths. So, there are those in the scientific community frantically working to create nanomachines to repair cells and reverse the aging process. Still others are desperately trying to figure out a way to transfer their human consciousness into a computer so their minds can live on indefinitely in a machine. Or basically, the cloud wasn't a big deal then when I wrote this book, but in the cloud. And those are the transhumanists, right? They want the Borg. Bring on the Borg. Like so many pursuits of modern man, these technological solutions to biology are foolhardy. And I believe I go on to talk about how, I guess here's the quote. In my earlier books, I used to put my own quotes big. So, because I already realized at that point that people weren't into long form stuff. So I'm not going to bore you by reading this in paragraph, but here's the thing. From an early age, we are forced to sit in classrooms for the better part of the day and fed foods high in sugar and fats. As children, we are taught that life is a struggle and that we must achieve, succeed, and win. From scholastic competitions to climbing the corporate ladder, there's no end to that struggle. We are taxed and charged fees and interest and create more stress, dealing with debt and more debt on top of debt. And so I guess the idea here, I may or may not go back to this, so I'll bookmark it there, is this idea of stress. Stress kills. You've heard that, right? And most of these people just don't have, like the one Western civilization woman, 122 is not bad, man. Think about that. And she was fine right up to the day she died. So, if you're, somebody's like in their midlife, right? Or even somebody who were 60, if you're 60 years old, and you were going to live to be 120, that means you got your whole life to live over. Right? Wasn't it like Picasso that like fathered a child when he was 80 or something like that? Excuse me. It's like, let's go to the videotape. Look that up. Yeah. Sorry for that. But this is what we do on Tony Caravan Live, right?
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Let's see. Picasso fathered child. Let's see. How old was Picasso when he fathered his last child? Pablo Picasso was 68 when he welcomed his youngest daughter, Paloma, in 1949. Celeb dads who worked. Can an 80-year-old father a child? This is a list of persons who have become father of a child at or after 75 years of old. James Doohan. Is that Scotty? Scotty, did you father a child at 80? So I was wrong about Pablo. He was 68. Still not bad though, right? I mean, almost 70 years old. So and if he lit, and though I don't think that child lived too long, like 15 years, so died at 15 or something like that. I don't know why. Said something like that there. The flakes got on my mustache, making my nose itchy. Mustaches are weird things. I've had a mustache my whole life, so I just keep it. I mean, why shave it off? It's just part of my thing. So it's weird. So that's what I kind of wanted to talk about. It's this idea of and I was talking about this person I know who was having these was saying allergies and my idea is that, like I said, we'll look up things or we'll read things. This was this book, I researched that. And believe me, it was hard finding a lot of that information, and I didn't just like take it from one source. And just like you saw me do with Picasso, where I said, I think I heard he did it when he was 80, and we found out it was 68. Okay. It's like, no big deal. That doesn't make me feel bad. I want to know. This show is about the truth and then going to the source to make sure and verify it. Okay, 68, not bad. All right. So from my research, I have found, and like I say, I'm not a nutrition, I'm not a medical professional, and I'm not trying to misrepresent any kind of thing here. All right. This is just like what I do, for example, and what I have found and what I've read, and like I say, what I try to do a lot of times is when I'm researching, and when you write, you write 10 books and all that, and you do writing essays, just writing in general, you're spending more time researching than writing. And you could ask anyone who does that. So you tend to like you want a footnote. You want because you want to make sure that you can show the source to somebody who's reading the book, because there's always these doubters out there. Whatever you say, there's always somebody, he's full of. So what my practice is simple. Sometimes I go to as many as 7 sources before I will list something. 7, not like 2, not look for a second one, because especially if you're dealing with the internet, unless you have some books, and I'm fortunate enough that I have some old books. I've collected some ancient, not exactly ancient, but I mean, I have books that are well over 100, 200 years old, some older books of writings, And so what I'm about to say about inflammation is something that has to do with, things that I've looked into and personally taken myself. And the reason I mentioned my Instagram in the beginning is that it's kind of a diary, a visual diary. It's not selfies. It's a visual diary of my garden, of my growing. And so what's there right now is just the beginning of, of this year. And we'll find out if this Friday, we get some frost and I'm screwed, because I've got some lettuce plants that are looking really, really nice, and some kale plants that are looking really, really good. But the lettuce particularly is looking really nice. So I'm seeing if that stuff doesn't get frostbitten, lettuce gets frozen, it just turns brown and like just disintegrates. But if that doesn't happen, there's a very strong possibility and likelihood, I should say, that I'm going to be eating salads out of my garden starting like next week. And it will continue for a couple of months. Once it gets really hot, lettuce is like a cooler weather. It likes cooler weather. but no plant likes freezing weather. Though kale survives over winters, and so does parsley and oregano, as I've learned this year. I have like oregano that's like bushes. So I've researched these anti-inflammatory foods. And what I've done is that by going to like 7 different sites, and I put some of this stuff, I put this stuff in my books. And let's see if this one particularly, because I'm always dealing with this kind of stuff. Like here's an example in one of this. Like I say, this is an older book, and I've done this often, but this is if you look closely at the bottom, we'll see if we'll get it into focus. TC's famous homemade veggie soup. You see that? That's just black and white inside. But this is some of the stuff that was, that I put in it. Ingredients: shiitake mushrooms, chopped broccoli, cauliflower. Oh, by the way, broccoli, if people steam broccoli. If you over steam broccoli more than 2 minutes, you basically got rid of the good stuff. I mean, it's still kind of a healthy thing for you and has some benefits. But something like broccoli, you have to no more than 2 minutes. I usually put, when I make soups or pastas or anything, or even you can make something like mac and cheese healthy, when it's done, I'll put some broccoli on the top of it and garlic. We'll get to that, how to prepare that. And then eat it that way, and eat that first off the top, with whatever flavoring I have. Cauliflower, a sweet potato, carrots, sliced onion, 4 garlic cloves diced, spinach, lentils, barley, ground, flaxseed, extra virgin olive oil, apple cider vinegar, splash, ground pepper, turmeric. You got to take turmeric and ground with black pepper. Sherpa salt, parsley, sage, rosemary, thyme, fresh oregano, basil, cayenne, hot sauce, soy sauce, dash, ginger, bouillon cubes if you want, linguine. I just break linguine or thin pasta up to make noodles, right? Why buy, because you can get these boxes of pasta for 88 cents in like a grocery store, and that's enough to make dozens, a dozen bowls of soup as noodles. So anyway, the two key things here, that shiitake mushrooms are hard to get and they're expensive, but they're good for you. They're one of the better mushrooms, right? Broccoli is definitely good. It has some people, will tell you that it has anti-cancer qualities too. But again, you got to eat it either fresh, put it in a salad, or if you're making a soup, a stew, or a pasta or something, place the broccoli on top of the pasta, at the very end, and just let it, warm up a little bit, but just not more than a couple minutes, and eat it that way. And that way, with the sauce, or if it's in a salad, the dressing or whatever, it gives, if you don't like the raw taste of broccoli. Now, turmeric is another anti-inflammatory and a good one. And people take, turmeric pills. Doctors actually give them to people. And those pills have pepper in with them, because turmeric needs pepper to work. So put turmeric, like if you put a teaspoon of turmeric in, then sprinkle in some black pepper. Some people say chili pepper. I do both sometimes, because chili pepper is good for circulation in your heart. And then there's the garlic. And I said 4 cloves of garlic. Now, garlic is, you want to get good garlic. The hard stem garlic is the best. But you don't want this white bleached garlic. All right. Now, I've just chased away everyone, even the YouTube monitor shows 0 viewers right now. So anyway, I'm talking to myself or the future viewers. Garlic, you want to take 4 cloves of garlic, and you want to just take the flat part of a chopping knife, and just flat chop them. And what that does is that breaks off 2 things. It makes it easy to peel off the paper covering. And then you take this little hard edge on it and you just chop off the hard edge. Get rid of the paper and those hard edge, and then chop up that garlic. All right, 4 cloves. All right. It also functions as a natural Viagra if it's consumed within 5 minutes of the act, so to speak. But it's great for the circulatory system, the heart, and all that kind of stuff. But it's a definite anti-inflammatory. Okay, it's an anti-inflammatory. It releases something, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, allicin. Okay, Allicin, something like that. Ellison. I think it's allicin. And so you have to let it sit for about 5 minutes till that stuff comes out of it, till the allicin is released. It's almost like a sulfury type of thing. That's like how garlic, the plant itself, normally heals itself. That's the stuff. That's why people who cook with garlic or use garlic powder, these people think they're being healthy. They're garlic powder or some kind of garlic pills. It's not doing anything for you. It's high in iron in like garlic powder, in the powder state, so if you're low in iron, taking garlic that way is fine if you have an iron deficiency, right? But it's not going to give you it's not going to help your immune system or help you, defeat inflammation. Inflammation is like the cause of most problems with people. And that's everything from older people who have, aches and pains, muscle joint pains and things like that, athletes even, to any kind of disease. I mean, if your sinus is swollen and stuff, it's inflamed. It's the same with everything else. So the food for thought, and talking about these people that have lived long lives, it's not so much. There's two takeaways from it, and we're not going to dwell on this. The 2 takeaways from my research, anyway, and like I say, I'm not telling you that you should do this or that this is fact, or anything. This is from research, right? The 2 takeaways I had from it was that being calm and reducing your stress. And that's why I included that line. I took off my watch and I had all the time in the world. You got to get out of the rat race, the hustle and bustle of life. Chances are most people are living above their means. Excuse me. Just an aside. Yesterday I was out in the yard. I was out in the yard and I was like, after I transplanted some of those, I'm not blowing my nose. I'm just wiping coffee off my mustache mainly, in case people think I'm a hypocrite or something. After I transplanted, put out the lettuce starts, and I'm just laying in the sun or fiddling about, I'm trying to get my I have a detached garage at the very end of my yard. Okay. And the yard is south facing. So that's why I can grow food there. And if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see some stuff. If you go further back, you see some of from previous year or two, some of the bounty that I got. But so I'm fiddling about or just laying in the sun, trying to soak up some vitamin D. The phone will reach out there. portable phone. I don't use a cell phone. I have a cell phone, but I have an app on it that's a Wi-Fi app. The Wi-Fi app yesterday, I had my phone out because I use it as a camera to take those pictures for Instagram. But the Wi-Fi app actually rang at the same time, so it was interesting. I don't always get Wi-Fi signal back that far because my property line is thin. It's only 19 feet wide, but it's like 100 some feet long, like 100, might even be 190, I forget, or 160. So I have this detached garage is where my workshop is and stuff like that. So while I'm fiddling about or hanging out, soaking up some sun, phone rings. I answer it, and it's somebody from my bank, and it's asking me, would I be interested in a credit line, a credit card, something like that, or refinance my mortgage or something. And I'm like, no, I said, I don't owe that much on my mortgage. And I've said many times on the show, I'll say it again, my taxes, my mortgage, taxes, and insurance every month are less than $200. So I bought, a cheap property, but, I don't know. I've got the studio in the front, I've got the bar in the kitchen, and I've got the, growing garden producing thing out there and a workshop garage, and I'm talking about I'm just going to walk up the street to get what I need, and I could walk down the street and go to a grocery store. So it's like, life is inexpensive. So I said, no, I said, I'm not, and she was like pushing one, you could come in and discuss this. I was like, not interested, But that's just to show that, they're really pushing right now. I've noticed this because you probably noticed it yourself, because I've asked people and other people have said the same thing. Aren't you getting a lot of like credit card offers in the mail and stuff like that? It's like they're really trying to push people because I guess maybe people were, pulled back after the 2008, crash, craziness or whatever, but they're trying to push people in debt. And debt is just stress, and debt is unnecessary. I throw them away, but I've put them out on some of these things. I've gotten these things. I had got one several days ago. It was for a credit card. You pre-qualified, and you really do pre-qualify. They'll give you that card. But if you read it, the interest rate was over 36%. And it was something like $129 annual fee or something. And so and they only give you start you with like $300. So some poor person, this is how they victimize people. No wonder people are like going batty right and left. So some person wants this credit card. And, in many cases, in certain things, you need a credit card, right? Like if you want to rent a car, you have to have a credit card, for example. You just if you don't have a credit card, they won't. They used to be able to put like a big cash deposit down, several $100s or more. But they don't even let you do that anymore. You need a credit card. So you get this credit card. I mean, if you're foolish enough, I wouldn't do it. And it tells you right in, if you read the small print, that they're going to deduct that year annual payment right from the get-go. So when you get this card, comes in the mail, you got this credit card now, you already owe them $129, and you're being charged 36.99% interest on it from day one. Some of these other interest rates are like 29.99, 30%. But anyway, you got to be kidding me. 36% interest? And that's like compounded daily or monthly or something ridiculous like that. So people get these credit cards. They basically, it's predatory banking, right? And they're in, and so they're in debt. So they go out and maybe they buy something. No, they got a credit card. People are weird like that. Okay, I got a credit card. I have $200 left balance on it. I'm going to go get that thing, right? Somebody wants to get something, right? And so they get this thing, and now suddenly they're paying 36% on $300. Within a couple months, that thing, the amount of money they owe almost double. Within 3 months, it's like doubles. So now they're like, they owe $500. They made some payments, say. In the course of a year, if they don't keep control of that thing, and then the next year they're going to be charged another $129 or whatever the annual fee is. So they're basically behind the 8 ball, all for no reason whatsoever. If you want something for $200, so this is a thing. So people are under debt stress, or people feel like they have to live above their means. See, I don't care. My house is presentable. I just live in an older neighborhood, like kind of at the I call the outskirts of town, so to speak, but it's not the end of town. Like I say, there's a supermarket within a mile. I walk a mile. And there's a couple of restaurant eating places, a convenience store, a bar, that kind of stuff. So it's, and I pay $200 taxes, mortgage, insurance a month only. Got rid of my cell phone service and decided to get that Magic Jack Wi-Fi app. I pay $40 a year for phone service. So I phone in my house, in my yard, and if I go somewhere and take my cell phone with me, I have an app. As long as there's Wi-Fi there, I can make and receive calls. And it's like, Wi-Fi's everywhere. So, these are just ways, you save money. And the same goes with, buying ridiculous things for your health. Just take care of yourself. Inflammation is like one of the biggest problems that most people have. And you have to, live healthy to survive. Just look at people and look what's going on. Nobody really even knows what's going on because we don't really get any answers. If you notice that, they tell us to do this, eyes without a face, but that's just because, they want us to be this. Cows, cattle. That's what that bandana is. People confused by this thing. Yeah, that's what they see us as. And I was wearing that bandana for a while, but I decided to put it on the eyes without a face guy. But they tell us this, this is what you need to do. But they don't tell us other things. Like sometimes things come out like, it's this thing doesn't live on surfaces. Why did we spend a year, with, everyone bought out Lysol spray and was spraying the, crap out of everything, right? Getting, inhaling all these ridiculous fumes. They told us one time that it, this in the sun disintegrates it, UV rays. Then they tried to like waffle on that. But the fact is, UV does, like I take it from a guy who's been in the hospital and's had operations. Like I've told this story before, but each shows its own thing. When I'm getting wheeled into the operating room and I'm looking up in the ceiling, all I see are these passing these UV lights, right? And that's to kill the germs. People who have water filtration systems, both, in their houses, but in commercial operations, even in sewage treatment plants, they've got these UV, area. The water passes through these UV, sections of the pipe. So you're out in the sun, you're getting exposed to this UVB, right? So not only are you getting vitamin D, but basically you're getting cleansed of, that you're in a kind of a semi-germ-free environment. But they don't talk about any of that stuff, and they go back and forth. It's like I say, they waffle words, some people call it. They say one thing and then they just kind of like dance around it. And then when you talk about it, then you get like some kind of hit from, if you try to communicate with other people, then someone accuses you of some kind of misrepresenting medical information or something like that. And you're going like, what are you talking about? It's just like you change from day to day. I'm just trying, I've already read from the CDC website and gotten some kind of warning, about something. I'm going like I was reading something from the CDC website. I mean, the fact of the matter is heart disease is still the #1 killer in the United States. All right. The second largest killer in the United States is cancer. Okay. These are realities. And you further go down the list. And there's combos of influenza, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and various other things, that, tend to be grouped together in unhealthy people. Not to mention, when I last checked, it was 47,000 people, over 47,000 people a year commit suicide. And like I said, a lot of people don't report drug overdoses and different things like that, families and stuff. They don't necessarily report that because of shame or something like that. But I mean, you were talking about close to 50,000 people dying of suicide, committing suicide a year. That's unacceptable in a society. It should be unacceptable. Yeah, so this is just straight ahead iced coffee. I'm using a thing I had bought some iced coffee in, and I just use this. I put instant coffee in it, shake it up, keep it in the refrigerator. That's what I'm drinking. I'm not digging it. It's kind of I've gotten into this morning habit of it, but I've almost would prefer like a cold soda, diet soda or something like that. Or maybe I shouldn't even be doing any, having any of it. Cause I did it's like these shows got me into this because I started doing these shows early in the morning. It's 6:26 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's
Rock Flux Live.
Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
Well, let's hear it.
Insert your station call letters here.
Here we
go.
I gotta go.
Go clear to go. Hey, don't think this sounds really cool.
Let's roll.
Go.
Yeah. So I think we covered that enough. And it's up to you, man. It's just food for thought. So a combination of taking care of your body, considering anti-inflammatories, talk to your doctor next time you go to your doctor about inflammation. See what he or she says about that and your immune system. And you find that there are, remember everything that you get medically, like it, a pill, so to speak. All right, these things are all come from the earth, one way, shape, or form. Chemical compounds, right? It's either an herb or some kind of mineral, or it's a thing that produces some kind of enzyme, that reacts in certain ways within your body. And so it's not like the magic of these drugs that they, prescribe to people, and also be wary of the people that push out supplements as the answer. You know, these people that take 20 pills every morning. Now it's, you know, half of these things, you know, they need to be, it's like I say with garlic, it needs to release that allicin, and it needs to be consumed like set for 5 minutes or so, and then and not be cooked. All right. And you know, and you can't same with broccoli. You know, they're very healthy foods out there, and I grow them in my garden. But you can't, people put them in, you know, they steam them to death, they put them in soups, you know, or they use them as flavoring things, or they buy powdered versions or pilled versions, and they really don't grasp that, you know, that you know, there's a way of getting the beneficial, you know, enzymes, vitamins, whatever from a particular thing. But you know, you steam and boil it and bake it, you'll get a flavor, you know. But you know, I on a slice of pizza, I'll sprinkle some garlic powder, some hot sauce and stuff like that, just for flavor. But I know I'm not getting any benefit from that garlic, other than perhaps maybe some minor iron, you know, like the equivalent of some supplemental iron. So, you know, and that's something you can discuss with a doctor or a nutritionist or somebody like that. But inflammation is the thing you got to avoid. You got to watch that. That's going to cause all kinds of problems. And, you know, keeping your immune system strong in these times is key. But if you want longevity, you know, the idea is that it's stress is like the killer. Because remember, heart disease is a stress related. In many instances, heart attacks are stress related. In some instances, they're not. They're diet related. In some instances, they're both. You know, somebody under an extreme amount of stress who's eating, you know, artery clogging foods. It's like I said, when they did the lockdown, you know, that was another thing. So they locked people down. So they gave them a sedentary lifestyle. You ask your doctor that. I said this in another show, but again, each of these is its own unit. So they made us have sedentary lifestyles, meaning that we're not moving around enough. Okay. So people are sitting on a chair, waiting for the daily briefing, right? And they're ordering takeout, delivery from basically junk food places, which were the only places open because the healthy restaurants and those kind of places weren't allowed to be open. And a lot of those places weren't set up for that kind of delivery and stuff, except in maybe some wealthy neighborhoods or certain city areas, but for the better part of the people. So you ask your doctor again, hey, doc, if I eat junk food and have a sedentary lifestyle, will I be healthy? And is that the right way to get through this thing, the unspeakable? See what he says. So that's why, you know, that freaked me out. I said, you got to be kidding. You know, and that's why heart disease is still the number one killer in America. I think it's over 650,000 people a year. You know, a year. And the same with cancer is like around 600,000 people a year. A year, not just some one-time thing that came along, right? However, whatever. You know, in 2 years, you know, heart attacks and cancer alone have killed something like, you know, almost 2.5 million people. Think about that. 2.5 million Americans. This isn't a world figure. You could go to the CDC, leading causes of death in the US, and find that number. I pulled it up many times here. I've held it up. I've got a printout of it. Think about that. 2.5 million people just in the last 2 years, right? Of those two things. And like yesterday's show, when I was talking about all of these things we're exposed to, electromagnetic, radiation and stuff that's all around. And me too, we're great now. There's nothing I could do about it. So, that's it. So you got to reduce your stress, chill out. One way of doing that is to just, like that association song that I referred to in the description, I took off my watch and found I had all the time in the world. Chill out, right? Don't get so caught up in the hustle bustle rat race craziness of it. But I have to. I've got these debts. Get out of the debts. Figure a way to get out of debt. There are ways of getting out of debt, and watch out for the scammers that will say, "Oh, we'll consolidate your debts and do this." Yeah, I got suckered into one of those things about I don't know how many years ago. It turns out they were taking their fees up front and they weren't paying off the bills. Yeah. So watch out for that. But the idea is don't be sucker enough to get, to get all these credit cards and to get that much debt to begin with. Don't buy an overpriced piece of property, a house. And if you're what they call underwater, or if you're paying a ridiculous mortgage, if you're paying like close to $2,000 for a mortgage, I mean, that's insane. I pay 1/10 of that. The idea is that, you don't have to live in some cookie cutter house in some neighborhood with, aluminum sided rectangular thing. Well, yeah, but I like my neighborhood. I like my neighbors. I like my school system. School system. What is a school system? The nanny state? No matter where you go, it's uniform curriculum run by, the corporatocracy. Basically, there's more administrators than there are teachers. It's, indoctrination, revisionist history, conditioning, right? Getting you ready for, and then they reinforce it once you get out of school with propaganda on the media, which is just the PR wing of the corporatocracy that really runs the government. There's no government. There's no elected officials anymore. That's the whole ridiculous thing about it. That's why this whole thing is so farcical. And I say it's the former United States. Because it is. We're not united. You can't give me an argument that we're united. How are we united? How could we ever be united? Never, ever, ever. It's irreconcilable differences. The abortion folks are not ever going to go with the anti-abortion folks. The pro-Second Amendment people are never going to go with the people who are, against, owning guns and stuff like that. All right. The red states, the blue states, right? Left, the right, Republicans, Democrats. I mean, think about it, right? The woke culture versus the MAGA culture, the, social justice warriors, versus, the people who go to church, right? Or live traditional lives. Think about it. This is when people go to a lawyer and court to get a divorce. It's what they refer to as irreconcilable differences. So, this is the former United States. It's a disunited state. It's a geographical location. We could still call ourselves Americans. If you must, you could say, I'm proud to be an American. But I don't know why in that regard with what they've done to the Constitution. They trampled the Constitution. You know, all the soldiers who fought and died. You know, what do we have? What freedom? We're under lockdown. I mean, come on.
This is Metropolitan Police speaking. Metropolitan Police speaking. All persons are warned to stay off the streets. All persons are warned to stay off the streets.
Then you got this
I
one.
can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
You know, the sad part about it is that's like so true. It's so true.
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
Yeah. And now they're like, for some reason, the Navy is releasing photos of, UFOs. Like, I talk about this sometimes. Like, what's that? What's going on with that? It's crazy. Things have reached such a fever pitch crazy that, and you see people snapping right and left all over. I mean, weekly. And it's just, it's just content for the car salesman. And you say, what do you mean car salesman? The news media, what do they do? Turn on your morning news. What are they selling? You're going to see an ad for cars. Right. And then an ad for a prescription drug. And like I always say, I say this every time, but I have to repeat it because, different audiences. And then you'll see an ad from some law firm saying, if you took this drug, that drug, contact the law firm of Bozo and Bonzo, and, you could get a settlement. Then you'll see a commercial. It's like, it's your money, right? That's for all the people who got the structured settlements from those lawsuits. You don't see lots of commercials for things that aren't widespread or that aren't targeted at a lot of people. You see, it has to do with demographics. It's like in a grocery store. That's when my start in marketing was as a very young man. Like, in between college, I took a year off and then I went back to college. And I had a job. I was in marketing. It was weird. I was a marketing director at age 20 for for a publication. It was in the AMP stores, which are the former grocery store chain. No longer exists that I know of. But, the whole idea there was that, you would market super marketing. Okay. Supermarket marketing. So we just call it super marketing. That there's a whole science to it. And that's how I learned at a very young age that there was, what you see, everything is wrong, and what you don't know, that we were being deceived. It's like I say, the glamour, like the witchcraft thing, or magic, where it's sleight of hand or diversion, deception, or misdirection. And people don't understand that these are the techniques they use. It's not magic and witchcraft in that regard, like woo-woo thing, right? You say that and people are like, no, it's, you could study and learn how to be a magician, and you will learn how to misdirect people, right? And how you can, deceive use deception and different things. Excuse me, I've been talking for an hour and a half almost. Just trying to clear my throat and covering it, trying to do the right thing. Right? Pardon me. So that's the techniques they use. So in supermarketing, for example, if you think about it, that there are a lot of pets in America, because there's an entire aisle, side of an aisle dedicated to dog and cat food, pet toys and all that kind of stuff. So obviously, you're not going to waste that valuable space, if there's like a minute, nobody's going to buy this stuff. And so that's the whole idea. So whenever you see supermarkets are a prime place to understand this. Whenever you see more than, say, a small section of something, then that's a highly popular, that many people, consume that particular item. I hate this. Happens every day. It's, you get up at 4 or 5 in the morning and you try talking for 2 hours. I've said this before. That's why singers, most of the best albums ever recorded were recorded like in the wee hour, late at night or in the wee hours of the morning. That's why singers and bands don't start. Concerts start late. Because of the voice. La, la, la. That kind of thing. So supermarkets are, a prime example of that. And so advertising, it's all behavioral science. It's all about profiling, just like the FBI profiles people. It's like demographic profiles. It's the same thing. It's all approach. And we're subjects. And that's why I show the cow, here. Because in effect, most people don't understand that the powers that be, the World Economic Forum, those kind of people, the Davos set, they just view the average person as cattle. And that the world's run by a corporatocracy. It's corporate. Politicians get campaign contributions. They're bought and sold by companies, big tech, big pharma, right? Big ag, financial institutions, military contractors, people who stand to profit on. And then when they have no use for you, then they warehouse you into some kind of facility, or worse yet, what I don't know, I think they're trying to there's a depopulation movement. I hear all these speeches. I've seen these Bill Gates speeches. It's like all they talk about is depopulation. I mean, there are nearly 8 billion people on the planet, and we are entering a period of, cooling, unlike what they're still talking about on TV and in schools and stuff. It's like, just look at it. We're breaking all the cold records over the past decades. It's insane. So this double speak, whatever they're trying to do, I'm trying to get this chair of mine. It's just completely out of control. So I divorced myself from all of that. And that's why I'm no longer political. I just don't deal with politics. And I'm like surprised when I turn on YouTube, because I don't have TV. I cut the cord with TV. But I'm surprised when I see these things and I'm going, who is that? And what is it, and why is it just all over the screen? The importance they give, the way they fabricate or take advantage of an event, a story, to, and fabricate it in the sense that it's to their benefit. Like, not fabricate it from its, as out of thin air. All right. Remember, I'm talking about like magic and the glamour, the witchcraft. You've seen that movie, The Craft. They talk about the glamour. And I've known witches. Like I've known some people who were witches. They call themselves like white witches, like they were good type of people. But the whole idea is the idea of the glamour is to just like what you see isn't really reality. And the funniest thing is science is starting to come to grips with that idea that perception is reality, and that we can, and the way we perceive life may not be what is real. And the average person, when you start talking about this stuff, it's like, whoa, slow down. But I spent a lifetime in this, right? In behavioral study and profiling, demographic profiling. And I know all about that. When you travel around, yeah, I know what's going on. And the idea is, yes, we're constantly being manipulated, deceived, or, bait and switched, and people are being like, pitted against each other, divide and conquer, right? Or misdirection, like in magic, or deception here. That's the nature. That's business. That's marketing. That's marketing and advertising. It's not woo woo, right? That's just that those are techniques that people use. So it's a very, in some instances, I look at it and it's like, it's just bizarre to me when I see a focus on like, okay, everybody seems to be focused on this person, this thing that happened, or that particular thing. And I'm going, meanwhile, you go to the CDC site, you see that there were 19,000 homicides last year. And you're going like, what? Right? I mean, I have to double check that because I've used that number. We checked it a couple of days ago. Number of homicides in the U.S. And let's go to the most trusted source here. Find something source that we could believe in. It's not an advertisement. Thing about Google is it's all advertisements. So you have to go back. Fast Stacks, Homicide, CDC. All right. Mortality. This is cdc.gov. Okay. All right. Assault or homicide is one thing, but mortality, all homicides, number of deaths, 19,141. 19,000. Okay. 19,000. Think about that. 19,000 homicides in the U.S. That's 1 year. And in the past year, the news media is like focused on like primarily one, but then like, a couple, maybe a dozen or so along the way, right? They've gotten involved in. And that's it. But there was 19,141 in the U.S. Well, what about those families? What about those loved ones? What about that? And these were people from every race, religion, color, flavor, walk of life, shoe size. It's not like it's, this isn't See, this is the game they pick. In other words, the idea is you want to create in the media, in marketing, all right, in politics, the corporatocracy, because remember, it's a business now. It's not an elected government, right? If there was a constitution, social media couldn't ban people, right? Because the First Amendment says Congress shall pass no law, abridging, various things and freedom of speech, assembly, and all that stuff. They've already like erased the Constitution. That's what I'm trying to say. This is a former United States. All right. But what they do is they're opportunists. So they need to find what they call the poster boy. It used to be the poster boy or the poster girl that they can use in their marketing of whatever ideology they're trying to sell to you, or the thing they're trying to use for some reason, some beneficial reason, which is usually profitable. For example, I mean, this is a little bit off that topic, but the testing interest for that unspeakable thing has become a $90 billion a year industry. And the thing, that goes there is in the hundreds of billions. And if you're wondering, so why is this thing continuing and continuing? Well, the world is a corporatocracy run by, people who are obsessed with power and greed. I don't know. Maybe it's $1 trillion revenue stream for the corporatocracy, for the Davos set. So who knows? Who knows? Because we don't get any straight answers. All they do is say, eyes without a face, is the way it's got to be. Contradictions, flip-flopping, right? You never know. You don't know what to believe. And that's why I say everything you know is wrong, and what you don't know, you don't know. It's a very profound statement. What you don't know, you don't know. And so it's witchcraft. It's magic and witchcraft techniques that they're using. And that's what they used to do in the old age, in the Middle Ages and stuff. And they'd have people believe in all this stuff because people are gullible. And that's how advertising industry came in, and that's what propaganda is. People make a case. It's sales. You start out, when you want to sell somebody on something, really sell them. Like, in other words, you want to be assured of the sale. Then you build up to it. First of all, you make sure you have the right demographic profile. The person or persons is the right demographic profile that matches. You're not going to sell a car to somebody who doesn't have a license, okay, or something like that. So first of all, you have to make sure that the demographic profiles match, all right? Define that. Understand human behavior. And then you systematically have to push the right buttons so that you build up to the point where they are caught up in this thing. And that's how, and that's the time proven technique that in the old days was used by, religions, magicians, and, and witches, basically. And that's how it works. And now it's used by propagandists and by people in the advertising industry. It's the same thing, same techniques. These are so old. They're as old as, time itself. Yeah. So you got to think about that. That you got to question everything, is what I'm saying. And we haven't been getting straight answers from anybody. Not really. One day we get this, one day we get that. Or 1 week we get this, 1 week we get that. 1 month we get this, 1 month we get that. We don't know. We really don't know. It's like...
Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
And that's how they treat you when you talk like this, So they got everybody bamboozled. Everybody's fooled. Everybody's like, all, scared. So many people scared. So people are stressed out and scared. Life expectancy is dropping. It's crazy. But now, complete stop, right? Now let's look at it in a different way. My biggest problem is that maybe Friday I might have a freeze in my garden. I'm hoping I don't. Right. But once we get over this hurdle, my life is going to be all about eating fresh food growing in my garden, hanging out in a lounge chair, listening to good tunes, right? Getting a suntan, having some cocktails, some brews in my bar, my house bar, smoking a cigar, listening to good tunes again, and just living life. In other words, and like that bank that called me and said, "Hey, do you want a credit card or something like that?" And I go, "No, I'm not interested in that." Detaching myself from the corporatocracy as much as possible by paying less than $200 a month for mortgage, taxes, and insurance. And cutting the TV. I don't have a TV bill anymore. I cut the cord. Don't watch TV. Cut it. Don't have a service. Don't have a cell phone service, right? Just use Wi-Fi, voice over IP, an app. It works fine. Works fine. So, systematically, and that's what people should, if you're stressed out, if you're scared and stressed and struggling, well, just go online. There's a half dozen websites or more where you could I use Zillow, but like I said, I don't recommend or not recommend that. I bought my house actually sight unseen. I mean, I did talk to a realtor, said this before, and I there was one of the pictures that was on the profile site of the house, wasn't sure if there was a second bath, a half bath in there, and I talked to the realtor who was handling the thing, but I hadn't visited this place. I hadn't been inside. And so I asked him if he could take a picture of this particular thing. I wanted to see if there was because I pay, like I say, I pay less than $200 a month. That's mortgage, taxes, and insurance. And I have 1.5 baths. So I had asked him to take a picture of that half bath. I wanted to make sure there was downstairs. It's a multi-story building, but it's detached, and I have a yard, and I've got this detached garage too. For ridiculous. So you can find these places, and in the privacy or at your leisure, in the privacy of your own home, you can just peruse places, and they could be near where you are, or maybe not near where you are, but you just take some time and investigate. It's the same, like I say, eating these healthy foods and longevity and being healthy. You just have to, do the research, due diligence, so to speak. Try to start getting out of debt if you're in debt. And if you're working yourself to the bone and your job's causing you so much stress, figure a way to phase out of it. It may take some time. It took me time to do it, but you make up your mind. And like I've said many times, you make a list. You take a piece of paper and you make a list of things that you like about your life, or things you don't like about your life, or things that you the way you would like to live or want to do, and the things you don't want to do. And don't expect to just sit down at the kitchen table and do this in one sitting while you're having a cup of coffee or something. No, this is something that it's going to take you days, if not weeks, to just compile those lists. Things I like about my life, things I don't like about my life, things I want, things I don't want. And then look at that and see it on paper. and you'll come to, and the answers will come to you that way. I tell people that all the time. It works. And I've used that technique too. Because you don't really know. It's like you don't know what you don't know. It even applies to that. Because until you see it, because you can't hold within your brain everything. You'll say, well, I know what I like and I don't like. Yeah, but you got to look at it in its entirety. And you've got to have that line drawn down the middle of a letter-sized sheet of paper and have those things side by side. And see if the likes of the things you like about your current life and the things you dislike about your current life, like which list is longer. And what things in the aggregate as you look at, because some things you dislike might be minor, right? Or maybe some things that you like are minor or easily reproduced somewhere else. You don't really know that. The human brain, the bioelectric brain isn't, unless you're a savant, or something, or somebody with like total, photographic memory or something ridiculous like that, which is a small percentage of the population. That type of person doesn't need to do this. Until you see it in front of you, and that's how you'll make your decision. And then once you decide to move forward, you may say, okay, I guess things are fine. I'm going to make some minor adjustments to my life and I think I'll be happy. Okay. But you might say, you know what? I'm not happy here and I'm stressed out. This just isn't working out. And I don't want I don't want to be caught in this like rut for the rest of my life. And you make a decision, then it's another process. And that process may take time. That's where you start exploring and thinking, maybe I need a new job. Maybe I need to move. Maybe I need to cut my expenses down so much that I could, if as you get older, where you could say, I could basically retire. If you cut your costs down so much, that's what I did. My costs became so low that I basically retired, more or less, and a lot of people and I have friends who just they wrestle with that. And they don't, when I try to explain to them, I'm saying, you don't need to be freaking out and stressed on this stuff. You're living way above your means. B, especially if you get to the Social Security concept where people retire you could retire at 62, or you could retire at 66 and a half or something like that, which is a difference of 4.5 years, almost 5 years. And it gets, depending on your age, goes up and up and up. Some people can't retire now till they're 68 or 70, but they still have that 62 early retirement thing, but you get less money a month. Okay. And so people are confused about that. And what I try to tell them and explain to them is that, no, what you don't understand, in that 4.5 to 5 months, if you were only getting $1,000, okay, all right, that would be $12,000 a year times 5 years, roughly, is $60,000. So why are you waiting? That $60,000 you're never going to get. But I would get this much more there. Yeah, okay. So now take the $60,000 at such and such an age and break that down monthly, redivide that up, and see how long it would take for you to get that $60,000. And you'll find out you would be approaching the average age mortality, the average age of death. And that's something that the Social Security Administration and the IRS doesn't really share with people. So it's you retire at 62. and start phasing out before that, your late 50s. You start planning and reducing your costs. Some people have savings. In other words, you build up to it. So, or there's a lot of different ways of doing it. So if you can cut down your costs to a bare minimum, but still have a quality of life. See, that's what I always say. It's survive, but thrive. Don't waste your money on stupid things. Like, in other words, when I got my check, see that light still burning there, almost 2 hours, and it could burn, indefinitely, not indefinitely, but for, if this was a power out situation, I conceivably could be using my, could be doing this broadcast because the cable line coming in for my internet, which is I have hardwired, right? So I could easily have one of these, because I bought the cheaper version of this. This is only $199. They have ones for like $500 that are way more powerful, and they have one for $1,000 that's like, man, you could like run your refrigerator on. But if I put this thing, all right, in here, because this has like this one has one plug. Everything's backwards. The way the interface of the YouTube, I don't know why they can't flip it, because Apple has a thing where they flip it. So, it's just poor. It's a Peter Pan generation now. They don't know anything about coding. What I'm saying is, if I were to plug this in here, I could plug my computer, my internet box into this device. Okay. Because they're all that energy saver, whatever that thing is. They're low. They don't use much electricity, they're low wattage. All right. And then, of course, this thing, solar chargeable. So I could be listening to some music. I could be, or I could be doing this live broadcast. And there'd be no power without any, the power's out for a week. A storm hit, right? Like Texas. Power could be out for 2 weeks because these things are chargeable by solar. This little green thing here that will charge your cell phone and give you light and NOAA radio and AM, FM and all that other stuff. There's a crank on the back of that. So even if the sun's not out, you can crank charge it, enough to get some information, you have a reading light at night. And remember, solar power doesn't have to be bright sun. Because whenever it's light, there's solar power. It's just not, it's not going to charge as fast. It's just, they call it trickle charge. But so what? During the daytime, you charge your stuff. At nighttime, you have lights on. It's the same with there's USB on this thing here. There's a couple of USB ports. So you charge your laptop, you charge your cell phone, smartphone, whatever. And then you can use them at night. And then you've got light, you've got whatever. People don't think. So you're prepared. It's like you survive, you thrive. You've cut your costs down. Move to the outskirts of town. Detach yourself as much as possible from the corporatocracy. Reduce your debt. Reduce your stress. Get your costs down so much that you can early retire, more or less, or just enough that you would just maybe need to do some part-time work, depending on what your field is, what you do. There's always, you don't have to, if you cut your costs down, you could just take on projects. If you're a carpenter or an electrician or something like that, working for some firm, and you're trying to pay some massive mortgage and all this kind of crazy stuff, and you're caught up in this ridiculous lifestyle, I mean, unless that's like your thing. I mean, it's different for these like Wall Street guys making seven figures, you know, that are playing that game, like the movie Wall Street or that movie with what's his face, um, DiCaprio, whatever that movie was. You know what I'm talking about? These movies, the rise and fall of these, you know, these players. I mean, if you're into that scene, that's fine. And, you know, there are some people that's it. You know, that's what the Davos set is. You know, that's money and power, right? You know, that's the corporatocracy. That's how they live. But remember, to you, to them, you're this. You're just cattle. So unless you know, if you're a player, well, first of all, nobody would be. Why watch this video? You know, you don't. You know, you wouldn't be watching this video. You'd be a fool. You'd be there. Okay, you know, that'd be the view from your deck would be like back here somewhere, right? And this would be you having coffee right now, you know, looking out through those palms out at the ocean. And I've lived that life. I've done that, you know. But, you know, it comes a time where you have to say, okay, can I do that indefinitely? And so I live your life to the fullest is what I say. And what, you know, and when you're young, I did all that stuff the first 20 some years of my life. I traveled ridiculously. I always say I've had more addresses. It's been a joke. I've lived more places, had more addresses than people could imagine. Because I've lived in so many different cities and I've had all these different type of jobs and stuff like that. But, you know, comes a time where you go, you know, am I going to be able to afford this view, you know, as I get older? Or is it just going to be, am I going to be stressed out and work myself to the bone and die young? And that's what I'm saying, as opposed to these people that live to be the centenarians. You know, the oldest woman, you know, when at least in Western civilization, you know, said, you know, she was smoking a couple of cigarettes, drinking wine, you know, eating chocolate and all this kind of stuff. But the thing, you know, was calm. And that same was the study they did in the US, where they interviewed 400 people, was very similar. There was like these people that lived long, like they were a little bit overweight. They weren't like, you know, people think, you know, they were skinny people or something like that. Nope. The majority of them were slightly overweight, not like obese, but slightly overweight. And didn't have necessarily, I mean, they weren't eating like junk food, but their diets weren't necessarily perfect. But the one thing that they had in common was less stress, and that, you know, their lives were somewhat calm and relaxing. And that's the most important thing. That, and, you know, and being conscious of things like I was talking about, inflammation and certain dietary things. You know, don't abuse yourself. But at the same time, you know, don't be afraid to enjoy life. And you know, why, you know, and people pushing it. So this person's like, I'm not going to retire until I'll wait till I'm 66 and a half or 67, you know, so I could get, you know, $2,000 Social Security and plus this, that, the other, and I could live. And so now you know, your body starts falling apart in your late 50s, man. I don't care who you are, right? You can't do what you wanted to do. And it's like, and you start having health problems. You know, when you turn 50, just in general, there's like a whole checklist of things that they ask you to do, you know, I'll give you an example of that. I forget what it is. Tests for people turning 50. See if they have it. Anything like this. 7 tests you need when you turn 50. Blood pressure. You got to start worrying about your blood pressure check, blood work, cholesterol profile. You got to have colorectal cancer screening. Usually you need an immunization like a tetanus. Like I had to get a tetanus shot, tetanus vaccine booster. Some people get like a shingles vaccine because shingles you can get. Check for skin and moles to see if you don't have any of that. Joint care, vision exam. You know, women have osteoporosis test, you know, breast cancer, prostate cancer screening. I ended up getting prostate cancer. I had to have a radical prostatectomy, you know. Knock on wood, you know, my PSA numbers since have been okay, but got to take a test again in July. Hopefully it'll be zeros. So the idea is once you hit, you know, you can you could be crazy. It doesn't matter if you're a jogger and going to the gym and all that stuff. Once you turn 50, that's like you crossing the line. So, you know, it's like once you turn 40, you know, it's like I don't wear glasses, you know, to walk around the world or in my house. These are reading glasses, right? Because once you turn 40, more or less, your eyes, you know, you no longer can read small print and stuff. So I wear these when I do this show because I have to, because I've got 2 computers here and I've got all these sound effects, you know, right?
Okay.
It's not that funny, you know, but I mean, you know, in order to see that, any of these things, I have to, I need these glasses to read it. Otherwise, it would just be blurry or I'd strain my eyes. I mean, you could read, but you'd be straining. So this is what I'm trying to say, you know, so even somebody in their mid 40s, mid to late 40s, you got to start realizing and start thinking about the rest of your life. And if the mortality, the average age of people who die is like 77, 78 or something like that, somewhere in the late 70s. That means if you wait, you know, if it were 77 and you waited till 67 to retire, you only got 10 years left. You know, until you may die, you know, by, you know, probability and statistics. You could live to be 100, you know, hopefully you do. But, you know, probability and statistics, think about it. And so why waste your life? You know, you should start thinking about these things in your late 40s, definitely in your 50s, because, you know, inevitably I've been through the hospital system. Inevitably, people have problems. And once you hit 50, you know, they might discover something. And, you know, and it's just like, it's weird. So, you know, and it's partially because of stress, the American diet, you know, and things like that. You know, people don't talk. That's why I was trying to say, you know, food for thought, you know, using it in like kind of 2 different ways. So, you know, I hope this is helpful to you. I mean, I just get you thinking about things. But there's, you know, you're in control of your life and you're in control of your future, destiny, whatever you want to call it. And it's just a matter of thinking things out, planning, you know, And it's like, yeah, you can survive but you want to thrive. You want to live well. And it's possible to reduce. I did it. I'm a perfect example of it. And I've gone through some tragedies, right? But I managed to get to a point now where, I'm going to say, I'm going to go take a hike up the street and grab a 12-pack, a couple cigars. I'm not going to drink 12 beers, but just so I have some in the fridge. And, probably around noonish, because that's the other thing. I drink early. If you're a drinker, drink early, especially when you're retired like this. Yeah, drink early. Because, you drink, have a couple drinks for a couple hours, listen to some music, do whatever, enjoy life. And, and then eat some dinner. And you'll find you won't even have a hangover and stuff. You wake up the next day and it's like, it's no big deal. I mean, I don't drink every day, but, once a week or so, enjoy life. Summertime, I might twice a week, I might have a couple, do some beers and stuff. But that's what I'm going to do. So I'm surviving and I'm thriving. My expenses are so low that I don't need, people like contact me like, hey, here's the thing, I'll pay you to do, And it's like, I don't want to work. I don't want the money. I'm not paying taxes anymore because, legally, because I've got myself to my income is right just below the poverty line. And the IRS says you don't have to pay taxes if you're below the poverty line. You don't have to file taxes. I mean, there's no reason to pay taxes because I'm, So I don't want to take on any more projects. I don't want any income that I have to worry about doing that. So that's one less stressful thing, because I've done my own taxes my entire life. Even when I ran businesses, I did my own business taxes and my personal taxes. And that was a stressful hassle, especially when I had a business that was like retail, because I used to have to do quarterly taxes for the state, like sales tax, because I used to sell stuff. Excuse me. That was a pain, royal pain. So that's my whole idea is you got to get yourself out of the, the state corporatocracy as much as possible. Limit your exposure to them. And that's another beauty of retirement. It's like you have to worry about that nonsense. Yeah. So yeah, you can live well. And same with people who are upset about something, like, if you're a political person. I used to, because I was opinionated about politics and stuff like that. And I've changed. I just don't care anymore about it. But these people holding the protest signs, we want this, we want that. Living well is the best revenge. Let it go. Let it go. Relax. Have a drink. If that's not your thing, have a, soda or a thing of tea, soothing tea or something. Or nothing at all, glass of water. But whatever it is, just whatever your thing is, just relax. Or go to church if that's your thing. Whatever you want. Meditate or be like me. Just bask in the sun, listening to some good tunes, breathing in some fresh air and stuff. Having fun and doing these kinds of things. Messing around with this stuff. So,
good morning.
And
Elvis has left the building. Thank you and good night.
See ya. Cheers.